Fair use is a very powerful right that allows the filmmaker, under certain circumstances, to use, copy, and even exploit for profit discrete portions of other people's copywritten material without even having to pay a single dollar in licensing fees. The fair use exception allows a filmmaker or any other third party to use discrete portions of the copywritten material without having to pay even a single dollar in licensing fees. Here's the bigger picture. Copyright, on the one hand, is supposed to encourage the creation of work. On the other hand, if you have so much work that's been copywritten and no subsequent user is allowed to use that work, then ultimately you create a stagnating effect. So fair use tries to strike the balance between the monopoly that the copyright holder has on the one hand and the need that the rest of us have to be able to use and to comment and critique the original copywritten material in order to permit the society to continue to flourish in its creative and its scientific endeavors. In order to determine whether any particular use is a fair use, the court will look at 4 elements. Element number 1, transformation, is at heart a question about whether the new use transforms the original copywritten material from something that it was into something new, some new aesthetic, new way of looking at it that's different than the way that it was originally viewed or understood. The second element the courts look at is the nature of the use. Whether the use itself is from a source that is factual in nature, a journalistic clip, for example, or whether the original material is fictional, like a movie or a song. The third element is a question of the amount that was used. Here the court looks at how much of the original copywritten material was used into the new work. It also asks the question about whether the heart of the original material was taken or whether some non-essential elements of that original material were taken or appropriated. The fourth element and the last element, here the court asks whether market share was taken, lost customers, or lost money in some important way. In the 1980s, the Supreme Court called this fourth element, this element examining market forces, the most important element of the 4. But since then, the Supreme Court shifted its emphasis and more recently has indicated that it's the first element, this question about transformation that in fact is at the heart of the fair use inquiry. This shift tends to suggest there's a liberalization from what used to be an emphasis on property rights toward what I think is an emphasis on First Amendment rights. Here's the additional complexity. What you're supposed to do with these 4 elements is not mechanically apply them in any particular case, but to look at them holistically. The Supreme Court has called fair use an equitable rule of reason, meaning that there's some soft subjectivity involved. The court encourages a case-by-case analysis. This is good in some ways because it encourages the courts to look at the copyright regime as a whole and to always remember the ends of copyright law, which is to encourage more creativity. On the other hand, as a result of this equitable rule of reason, the outcome in any particular case is less certain than it otherwise would be. Enter the best practices statement.